we have to give people what they want sometimes. That's why I don't like sequential steps. All aging and dis-ease, dysfunction is a result of keeping these traumas, these negative energies and emotions trapped in the body, unable to get out.
Mitch Webb is a former corporate sales executive turned health coach. It's Mitch's passion to help executives who are sick, tired, and overweight get their life back so that they can look, feel, and perform their best. And he does all of those magnificent things without having you live in the gym or live on this fad diet that might get your results for a week, and then you're not feeling great, you're not feeling full of energy, you're not feeling full of life, you're still wondering, how can I optimize my lifestyle as a high-performance human being? If any of that resonated with you, then you know that this is the episode for you. We just had Mitch on the show. We had an episode with Mitch a couple weeks ago that just dropped, and we barely scraped the surface, just as I know we'll do the same today. But by the time you leave, you'll have practical strategies that you can use to take your health to the next level. When you take even just one thing away from this conversation with Mitch and I, please share this show with just one other person who could use it as well. Copy the link, send it over to them wherever you listen to podcasts. You're the reason the show has grown the way it has over the past 2 years. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the return of the legend, Mr. Mitch Webb. Great to have you.
Let's go. Appreciate you having me on again, Brandon. Round 2. Let's go, baby.
Hell yeah, man. So let's just jump right in where we left off. And last time, just to refresh you, we talked about supplements. We talked about the importance of inner work. You literally just mentioned a lot of people come to you because they want to lose weight. It might be something physical that they want to change with their body. And you even said that's what they come to you for, but a lot of it is the background work. It's the inner work. We talked about that. We talked about intermittent fasting. We talked about your personal health journey, at least a smidgen of it. I mean, let me ask you, man, like, what didn't we touch on last time that part of you wished that we did?
Oh gosh, man! I always say, I'm 2 inches wide, 10 miles deep. So, I'm an open book and happy to share. Gosh, it's funny. I was going to ask you, how long has it been since we last recorded? Because it feels like it's been months.
Yeah, 1 month actually. March 14th. Our last episode.
1 month. That's crazy.
Yeah, time's flying.
Man, always learning and growing. Recently, like we were talking about before we got on, I've been doing more like trauma therapy, and was able to see that was needed from the group that we do here in Raleigh, North Carolina, the Men on a Journey. I mentioned that before we hopped on too. It's just a free group for men to get together to share, what we go through, to have a safe place where they can be vulnerable and open. And it's funny. I thought I was supposed to be this health guru in the group, and even missed the first 2 meetings. But eventually, got so much help from those guys, and found my way into trauma, PTSD type therapy, and it's been great, along with everything else that I'm doing. So that's I've been learning a lot about the nervous system, learning about a little bit more about mental health, and then really digging this group that we've been doing, and starting a podcast, starting a remote meeting, and have our in-person that we've been doing for about a year.
That's awesome, brother. Now it's very clear that you're constantly focused on figuring out what's the next best thing that we can do in order to feel better and live a better life. So Let me ask you, you mentioned EMDR specifically before, and I actually just pulled something up because I've heard of it, but then I just looked it up again, and part of me thinks that maybe I've never looked into it. This concept, and I'm going to share my screen here because this is pretty cool. EMDR therapy is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a therapy. It's a mental health treatment technique that involves moving your eyes a specific way while you process traumatic memories. Interesting. The goal is to help you heal from trauma or other distressing life experiences.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I've had a couple of those. If anybody tuned into episode 1, I'm sure we covered a lot of that, or a couple of things from that.
Damn. So let me ask you this, like, what role does trauma play when it comes to these individuals coming to you? So just for everyone listening, you work with busy leaders, busy executives who have a lot of responsibilities. They come to you and they're like, hey man, I need you to help me get my health in order here. You know, I want to lose weight. And you're like already thinking, okay, there's probably something under the surface here. Not probably, but there's something under the surface here that if we work on this, everything else that we do will be easier. What role does trauma and past experiences play into someone's physical health journey?
Oh man, the more I learn about it, the more I think that is the root cause for dis-ease in the body. Because especially as men, I mean, I don't want to know, women do the same thing, but from an early age, society tells us that it's that it's weak or not manly, not masculine to have emotions. And so we're taught to what? Suck it up, buttercup, like rub some dirt on it, whatever that may be. Anything that we can do to discourage letting that emotion out. And so when we don't do that, what are we doing? We're stuffing it down, right? Like you watch an animal in nature, they do a really good job of moving in and out of fight or flight. So your sympathetic nervous system, and then rest and digest, your parasympathetic nervous system. And humans, we're meant to do that too. So if you see a deer, let's say, get chased by a lion, what does it do? It takes off, it flees. It once the threat is over, maybe it shakes off, and it goes back to drinking water or eating or whatever it was doing before. It's able to move through that emotion. But in our society, we're taught that these now I'll mess this up probably, but as I said, I'm learning about the nervous system. But we're taught that we are higher primates or higher animals. We're above the animals, right? Humans are above the animals. And so what separates us is the emotions. One of the things that separates us is the emotions. So to be more human-like, to be less like an animal, we want to suppress those animal emotions. Same thing goes for in the workforce. I think it's called the patriarchy as well. But in the workforce, it's like we are valued on our output, on our work output. And so if our emotions are getting in the way of performing well at work, then we want to suppress those emotions there too. Right. And then as far as like the patriarchy goes, I believe, and I could be botching this, but it's basically like, suck it up, don't cry. And so we do that. And over time, over a lifetime, how old are you, Brandon?
I'm 29.
Yeah. So for 29 years, likely you've been, I don't want to speak for you, but you've been suppressing some shit.
I'm sure.
Throughout your lifetime. That it gets stored in your body. There's a really good book called The Body Keeps the Score. And that's what it is. It's like all aging and dis-ease, dysfunction is a result of keeping these traumas, these negative energies and emotions trapped in the body, unable to get out. And what's cool is once I started understanding that, but understand we have these natural built-in mechanisms as humans to release these emotions. Crying, there's a study that they did where they showed that tears carried stress hormones. So they carried adrenaline and cortisol. So that's literally that backed up, stress hormones that are releasing. We can do it by shaking. We can do it by, moving, getting in nature. There's so many different ways to release these emotions. But, I found that it's even really hard to get in touch with them after 30 something years of suppressing them.
Wow. So so in that case, then, like I come to you and I say, Mitch, can you please help me to lose weight? Can you help me get my body into the shape I want to get in? And immediately, there's something under the surface there. Last time I asked you the same question of how do you relay to that individual? Okay, well, we got to focus on your energy. We got to focus on these suppressed emotions that you've been carrying around for 40 years, 50 years, 29 years, whatever it is. Like, how does one begin to express their emotions so that they can begin to release them? You just mentioned a few things like getting into nature and even like movement and shaking and even crying, right? But rather than like forcing yourself to cry, I got to get rid of these emotions, right? Like, how can we do it in a practical way? Where do we begin?
Well, I mean, you can't make anybody do anything, right? And certainly they have to be ready. It's a fine line of making some suggestions, observations, having some dialogue and rapport till we get to a place where, like, hey, it's going to come out. That's where with my clients, there's I guess a strict process of onboarding them or being sure that they're the right fit for being a client. You have to be motivated. They have to be ready. They have to have a strong why and purpose, so that they keep going when it gets tough. And a lot of people come to me for weight loss, so they're not thinking about unresolved trauma, right? Certainly I wasn't thinking about that 15, 16 years ago when I started this journey. And if you'd have asked me about that day one, I would have jerked away from you, right? I told you, like, what are you talking about? I'm here to lose weight. You know what I mean? So we have to give people what they want sometimes. That's why I don't like sequential steps, or we do this and then we do this and do this. Like, everybody is so different. And that's why I like to start with the basics. And the basics may be, I don't know if I listed these off last time, but I'll just do a couple, like setting intentions, loving yourself. Any health journey is going to begin with loving yourself. Sometimes it's the hardest person to love. I mentioned setting intention. What do we want? Where are we wanting to go? How are we going to know when we get there? From there, eating real food, drinking water and hydrating properly with electrolytes, and sleep and stress management. These little wins that everybody knows are like the basic of health. But from that dialogue, we get to know each other. And so I'm looking out for behaviors. I'm looking out for language and different things that you're going to, different things that I'm going to notice during our time together. Let me know. Let me ask some better questions here, right? And I tell my clients, like, I want to know. I'm going to poke and prod you sometimes, and that's what makes me good as a coach. So when you get uncomfortable, let me know, because that lets us know where we need to go, right? So if we're uncomfortable and we can observe that, well, then let's observe that with as little judgment as we can. And just be curious, kind of like meditating. Let's watch it and see what happens. And that's kind of what it's like in the EMDR therapy. Is we would, have a conversation about something that was, I guess I didn't even think it was traumatic at the time. Now I'm understanding that it was traumatic, but something growing up, right? You can just watch your body react, and there's it's like, okay, there's something there, right? And so I guess going back to your question of how do you introduce that, like, very slowly. And sometimes people aren't ready yet. I notice that when I start to, I don't even like calling it, let's do mindset. That's already off-putting. Let's do some emotional work. Let's talk about your trauma. But they're like, that's going to turn somebody off. I'm not a trauma therapist. I'm literally just going through this myself. And so I'm kind of a connector, right? Like, I'm the quarterback when I'm working with someone. And they may have other coaches that they're working with, and I may introduce them to, hey, I want you to go get a baseline of functional medicine panel. I want you to talk to this therapist, give them a chance. I'll pay for the first session, something like that. Give an opportunity. So I'm not out here diagnosing or treating, but from what I'm understanding through this process, there's so many things that we can do to bring out the body's wisdom from these experiences. The body is so smart. It wants to heal. It wants to go to homeostasis. And so it's a process of, like, asking good questions to get some of those unconscious answers to come up. And we have several different ways of doing that.
Yeah, I like how you said that you aren't like, we're going to talk this, we're going to talk that. It's clear that you are very much a consultant. You're not necessarily the butcher who says, oh, meat's going to fix your problem. This is all you need to eat, right? Or you're not the dietitian who's a vegan, who's like, nope, no meat. You got to do it this way. You're looking at it like, okay, based on your intentions and based on where you want to be and how you're going to get there, this is what I'd recommend you do. And I think that this person would be the best to speak to. I think that this person would be great to speak to.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a very holistic and a very real approach that's focused on the human being. So this, and I know again that you're just diving into this realm of research, but again, you're already a step ahead of most people listening, including myself. So when I ask you this, you don't, no need to keep saying, wow, I might botch this. Like you've expressed it, right? So we know that you're new to this area. I'm new to this area too, but you're ahead of me. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Because it's fascinating to me that as an example, you had a conversation and discovered this memory that you didn't even think was a traumatic memory. But looking back on it, you realize by the way that you held it in your body and the way that you're using your body or felt it or whatever, you can tell me, you realize that this was in fact a traumatic experience. So how do you then unearth these traumatic experiences that you may not even realize that were traumatic in the first place? Like, how did you do that?
Well, a professional, working with a professional, right? But it's interesting. I have been experiencing these feelings my whole life and didn't know what they were. And I specifically in psychedelic experiences. So like deep into, I mean, bro, I followed Widespread Panic in college, and I don't know if you know them. They're jam bands, kind of like the Grateful Dead and the Allman Brothers had a baby, right? Like that's we sold mushroom chocolates and T-shirts and grilled cheese and waters and barely wore any clothes and traveled all around the country following music, right? And so we're eating a lot of psychedelics, and a lot of the experiences I see how I've had so many. I was using it to escape at that time, I believe, to numb myself, when it was actually very healing and bringing a lot of this stuff to the surface. So in therapy, what the first sensations, how do I feel it? So I didn't feel it for a long time. I got really good at disassociating. So like that means I would basically leave my body. And the first, being a type A perfectionist, you put these headphones on when you're doing the MDR. You've got these paddles in each hand. You got headphones on, and it's the sound is going from one side of the brain to the other. And so what you're doing is you're trying to sync the left and the right hemisphere up of the brain and balance the HPA axis. Okay. And basically the way she described it to me was, your brain, you're going down a road and there's a right and a left. You went to the right. We want you to go to the left. So basically your nervous system is dysregulated, is in overdrive. And I would say, now that I've learned this, so many people are, right? How could we not be in the civilization that we live in? Like, it feeds that upregulated, overstimulated pathway. And so at first, when I first started doing it, and this is where I could help clients, is I went to where do I start, man? It's such a long journey. It's like, so I started reading the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Started understanding how trauma gets stuck in the body, and shared an experience in the men's group that involved something with my dad from when we worked together. And I was really upset about it. And I was understanding how something in my present life was a pattern or it was the same exact pattern or way that it happened when I was working with my dad back in the day.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I'm treating this person like it's my dad, and this is not my dad anymore. And so I guess the way that I said I was talking to a therapist or a yoga specialist type person who does some mindset stuff. And I said, this person made me feel this way. And she said, nobody makes us feel anything, right? Like I said, I thought that's how you communicate in a healthy relationship. You made me feel this way. And she said, no, the way we communicate that is the way that you acted or the behavior that you had. It brought up some unresolved stuff in me, right? And so I could see that it's an old pattern, and I wanted to heal that. And so from there, I started learning how to do tapping, like EFT, and tapping on different places on the body, and saying what's coming up. And these different points have different meridian points and stimulate different things in your body, help your body relax. But then what it does is when your body goes into that relaxed state, it's like it all this wisdom comes out. Like, what do I need to do now? Your body knows what you need to do, right? Like, you're smart, dude. You've lived 29 years and you got a lot of experiences and you know this body, right? And so from there, I guess it was learning how to understand how to name emotions in the body. And I had to look at a sheet of paper and do this.
What were the emotions, man? What were the emotions?
Oh, I mean, anything like anger, fear, doubt, worry, anxiety, happy, excited, empowered, and all these things. And I was like, oh, as soon as I could see that, okay, I can point. I'm feeling this right now. I'm feeling that.
Yeah.
And over time, I got better and better at that. If I had a negative experience for months where I was triggered, and I had to learn what that means. That means like triggering some unresolved stuff in the body. That's what happened with the situation with my dad. I learned how to point it out, and I did that through tapping. I would have a negative experience. I would say I would want to go like smoke a joint, or you can numb yourself with working out or watching YouTube or whatever, right? And so I noticed myself want to go do that, and that's bearing. And I said, no, I'm going to go dig into this. I'm going to feel it. Like feeling, you got to feel that emotion to heal it. Emotions are energy in motion, right? You just want to let them go. And you do that by acknowledging them and letting them move instead of like avoiding it or suppressing it. Wow. And over time learned how to call that stuff out. Circling back to the conversation with in the men's group, I was sharing how that had came up with my dad, and they said, how does that make you feel? And I was like, I want to kick his ass or something like that. Right. And like, now that like shocks me that I said that. But that was like a childlike, like, how old are you? My therapist would say, like, how old were you when, how old is that memory or that reaction? Like, oh, that's like 10 years old or something. Right. And so, now going into therapy, disassociating, I was talking about that. Like the first memory we went into, I immediately felt super triggered, like anxiety all over my body. Like I wanted to get up and get out of the seat. I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it was there for a second and then it was gone. And I told her, like, I don't feel it anymore. And she's like, yeah, that's disassociating, because you've had so much uncomfortable experiences in your body. You've taught yourself how to leave that experience. And so it took me a while to go back into it again. And then we get there again. I would just start talking about things again. I can feel it. And this time I sit in it. Right. And it's like, it's very uncomfortable. But over time, I guess relating it back to the psychedelic journeys, I would feel, I thought I don't know if everybody does experience this, but during like a psychedelic experience, there'd be a couple of points or one point where I would get cold and like just racing anxious thoughts. And that's exactly what was happening during the traumatic experience, because it wasn't cold outside, and she's got this little heater. We are sitting outside. It's cool. It's North Carolina. It's April. And maybe 60 degrees in the mornings. And there's a little space heater there. And she's like, Mitch, can you feel the table? And I thought she was trying to get me to come back in my body, because you use your 5 senses to do that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I said, oh, you're trying to get me to relax or whatever. And she's like, no, I'm trying to make sure you're not burning the table up. She goes, are you cold? Because the heater was going so high. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'm not cold. I was like, but I feel cold to my core and I'm visibly shaking. And Whoa. She's like, that's a trauma experience. And I'm like, I have felt this so many times before in psychedelic experiences, in very triggering moments where I'm speaking with someone. And obviously I've been triggered, but I was completely unaware of that.
Fascinating. Is this Dr. Iris, by the way?
No. This isn't Dr. Iris. Dr. Iris sent me to her. This is Dr. Ruth. She's an EMDR therapist here and there, and she does a bunch of different types of EMDR. But yeah. Is
this like a weekly thing, or you go? How often do you do this?
Yeah, dude, it took me 6 months of doing personal history just to do the EMDR. And so I just started that 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'll do it again in another 2 weeks. Like, man, after the first session, it was a little touch and go for a couple of days. Just very anxious, like tough sleeping. But then after 3 or 4 days of it, I felt more connected, grounded, less in my head. And and just, yeah, present that I have in a long time.
What kind of therapist is Dr. Ruth?
I don't know. I mean, I know that she practices multiple forms of EMDR. I would say she's a trauma therapist.
Trauma therapist. Okay.
Yeah.
And you've worked with her for 6 months until this point.
Yeah, just doing personal history. Like, because, dude, I've got so much stuff. And I tell you what was interesting is the first time I went and saw her. Dude, you know how many podcasts I've done talking about my story and feel comfortable sharing all the shit? Day one, I went and saw her, and she's like, "Tell me what's up." And I had never cried that hard in my life. Like, it was embarrassing to me. And I kept apologizing, and, I felt very uncomfortable and weird. And I mean, I was disheveled the rest of the day. And now we laugh. We don't laugh about it. I mean, we laugh at how far I've come, right? It's like how awesome. Anyway, I guess we're celebrating. I should say that. I don't want to bring any negative connotation around that. But like what she told me is, and I've heard so many people have this similar experience, that she goes, when you find the right person, it's like your body knows and it just lets it all go. And she goes, the sad thing is that that's very common, and that most people are so turned off by it that they never come back.
Yeah.
Now me, I was buckled in. I was like, whatever that was, let's do it again.
Yeah. Because you're a student. You're always looking to learn. You're always looking to improve.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah.
Huge. I love that. Such a cool conversation, brother. And we could stay the whole time on that. But for the sake of a couple other things I want to ask you, let's move on to this one. So I read on your website where you talk about helping, and I wrote it here specifically. You help people, specifically these busy leaders and executives, create a sustainable lifestyle without living in the gym or going on a diet. Mm-hmm. So, and I think it said not even living in a gym, but even without going to the gym at times. Mm-hmm. So how does one do that? Like, how, I know you mentioned eat the whole foods, hydrate your body, sleep, and all these different metrics, but like, what goes into that? How do you help people to do that?
So the question is, how do we create a healthy lifestyle without going to the gym?
Like what? Sure. And like, what should we avoid, and what do we want to do more of in order to really create that sustainable lifestyle? Maybe the best way to start this is how would you define a sustainable lifestyle?
Well, I mean, I would think, I guess breaking it into a couple different categories. One being nutrition, eating single source food ingredients, right? Getting out, a lot of times removing grains or inflammatory foods, maybe identifying that for a period of time, by keeping things like, I don't know, the inflammatory foods are typically going to be like milk and nuts, grains, nightshades can be one. Eggs can affect some people.
Nightshades? What are those?
Nightshades would be like peppers and tomatoes, things like that.
Oh, interesting.
So it just depends. Like, what do you have going on? A lot of times I'll have people remove grains and like just processed foods, right? So getting processed foods, getting some grains out of there, let the inflammation calm down. But just eating single food ingredients, and then moving your body. When I say don't go to the gym, like go to the gym is great. A lot of people that I work with are more type A. There's two different types. Like there's the type A, the person that's going to the gym 6-7 days a week and they're not getting any results, and they've got belly fat around their midsection. They're not sleeping because their cortisol is just through the roof because they're just pushing their body so hard. And then there's the person that's not moving at all. And so, on the latter, the person who's over exercising, we're going to probably try to bring them down. We're going to try to get them in there 2-3 days a week. I mean, dude, since the last time we've talked, I didn't work out for 3 or 4 years because of head injuries, because of COVIDs. And I'm working out 3 times a week. I put on 15 to 20 pounds in like a couple of weeks. I'd say half of that's muscle, half of that's body fat. But I mean, I'm more of you break down muscle in the gym, you build muscle when you're sleeping and when you're eating. And so to give someone an exercise program, first I have to understand the stress that they have in their life, right? What's your exercise like? What's your What's your diet like? What's your family life like? What's your work like? What's it like when you get home? Like, what do you do in your free time? How much stress is on you right now? Right. And that's also how we look at kind of learning about the nervous system is like, can your nervous system handle more stress?
Yeah.
Right. Now, a lot of people aren't getting any stress in their nervous system if they're sitting at their desk if they're sitting for 18 hours a day when they sleep 8 hours, they sit in front of the TV when they get home, they sit for meals, they drive to work, they sit at work all day long. So that person needs to move, right? We need to bring some stress into that person's life. That may be, let's try to get 8,000 to 10,000 steps in a day, and then let's go from there. Now, I guess the on-ramp, if someone was looking to, you got to understand where people are at and where they're trying to go. And it's like, okay, I want to be, most of my clients are like, I don't want to be the fittest. I don't need a six pack. I don't need to be the fittest person in the gym or, I want to look good. I want to feel good. I want to perform at a really high level. I have this amazing career. I've got this job, family life, whatever. And I want to enjoy those things, right? I don't want to be in a gym 10, 12 hours a week, but I do have people that want to do that too. So it comes down to your why and then reverse engineering that. Now, if you're sitting 18 hours a day and you're overweight and your health is suffering, like, yeah, let's get you moving. Let's get you doing micro workouts between Zoom calls. But it's over time that person should progress to where maybe they're in the gym 2 times a week or something like that,
So you go to the gym 3 times a week, and I'm assuming when you're at the gym the 3 times a week, how long are you there and what are you doing while you're there?
I'm usually there for an hour and a half, but like I've hired a coach and I had really poor form. I lived out in the cut growing up and you would call it slanging weights. We didn't really have good form back then. I'm learning. And so I've got a lot of, low back stuff and hip stuff that I'm working through. And so I've hired this guy and he's helped me so much. I mean, I've put 100 pounds on my deadlift and probably the same on my squat. But the workouts that I do squat, deadlift, bench press, military press, some rows, some pull-ups.
What kind of coach is this that you're working with? What does he? What's
powerlifting coach, strength
powerlifting, because that's a goal of yours. That's the direction that you want to move in.
Right now, I just want to add a bunch of strength, and I definitely have. I wanted to learn good form, and add some strength. And so basically, the workout, I'm squatting every time I go in the gym right now. I'll rotate between the other stuff. I'm usually it's a squat, and then it's like a overhead press twice a week, bench press twice a week, and mix between pull-ups and bent rows. So it's 3 exercises every time I go in the gym. I'm probably, if I'm in there for an hour and a half, I'm probably actually working for about 45 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm just resting a lot, letting my heart rate come down, and moving heavy weight.
And those days that you're not at the gym, the other 4 days, because a lot of people listening might say 3 days, I can do that. Like 3 days is reasonable for me, right? So what are you doing movement wise on the other 4 days?
Oh, I mean, dude, I probably average 12 to 15,000 steps in a day. So I move a lot. And that's the key. I mean, moving, I would say you don't have to exercise. As long as you're moving, you're getting those 8, 10, 12,000 steps a day. You don't need to go to the gym. But I'm walking, I'm doing yoga. I'll enhance recovery with hot and cold plunges, sauna. I've got a sauna at the house. I'm playing golf, I'm going hiking. I'm doing whatever, I'm moving around a lot.
So are you when you're not hiking, when you're not golfing, because those are, obviously very easy ways to get your steps in because you're doing several things at once in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, how do you carve out time each day and say, I'm going to go for a walk outside right now?
No, it's just built into my habits, right? That's part of that sustainable lifestyle. So an average day, it would look like me and my wife, we're going to wake up. That's one of our New Year's resolutions together. Like, we're going to wake up, we're going to go for a 30-minute walk.
Cool.
That's 4,000 steps right there.
Yeah.
And so I will, at some point during the day, I'll probably go for 20 or 30 minutes. There's another 4,000 steps. And usually after dinner, I'll go for 4,000 steps on top of whatever I'm doing. Like if I'm on the phone, this is the only time you're going to see me sitting down all day. I'm going to be on the phone with clients, walking around the house. I think better whenever I'm walking. And so I'll put like a headset on, have a little fanny pack going, a little Joe Rogan fanny pack. And I'm just doing laps around the house. I got my bare feet on. I got my shoes off. I'm putting my bare feet on the ground. I got my shirt off. I'm getting sun on my body. I'm trying to do as many habit stacking type of modalities that I can to optimize health.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. I want to ask you this because you said it earlier and I've heard it before, and it blows my mind that stress can manifest in a healthy and fit person who does work out constantly and they're in the gym. But like you said, they're pushing their body to that stressful limit to where stress manifests as fat around that person's midsection. So I know this is kind of like a turn here from what we were just talking about, but it's similar. Like, how does stress manifest itself and why there, number one? And then the second part of this is going to be, how do you then help people who are like, Mitch, I don't know what's going on, man. I'm fit, I'm healthy, but this is still here. And you're like, hey, that's stress, man. And they're like, what do I do? Like, how does it manifest and what do you do when it does to help that person?
Well, I guess when I think of like belly fat, that's typically hormonal, right? And someone who's overproducing cortisol, adrenaline, they're not sleeping at night, they're stressed out often, their body is, chronically in that state of fight or flight. Think about our society checking the phone constantly, notifications going off, emails coming in, my boss is yelling at me. I know that when I was in the corporate world, I was terrified to turn my phone on in the morning, right? Because I didn't want to see the emails going crazy, the text, because our bodies, our nervous systems are responding. Now, we don't think about this. Like back in the day, our nervous systems are set up for fight or flight so that we can run and flee, right? Because there's danger. There's a tiger at the door. Well, guess what? There is nothing there to kill us. There's nothing at the door that's going to kill us anymore. But every time that email comes in, that notification goes off, if it's tied to a negative association, then we're going into that hyper state of arousal. Okay, so now then I drive. So my phone's going off all morning long. Maybe I'm going to skip breakfast. I'm going to have some coffee because I think intermittent fasting is going to help me. So I'm driving because I haven't eaten. Cortisol goes up. Now that I throw coffee on top of that, cortisol goes through the roof. I get to work. My boss is texting me and emailing me. I show up a freaking mess. I'm pissed off already. Now I got to deal with client calls all day long. And to relax at the end of the day, I'm going to go do a workout. And I've probably under-eaten calories. And, my body is just extremely stressed. So how do I turn that off at nighttime? I can't. I pop an Ambien, I go to sleep, I get 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep, and I wake up with my hair on fire, and I do it all over again. And so bathing the body in these stress hormones, it shows up, and your body is trying to protect itself, right? Your body thinks it's going to die, and it's fighting for its life. So that is not a time to rest and relax and sleep and, make babies and digest food. It's a time to run for our life, right? And so your body is doing an amazing job of keeping you alive the only way that it knows how, and that's by storing extra body fat. And so how would I help that person? One little thing at a time. Think about how many things that are on their plate already. Are they even going to be receptive to the information? I don't know.
Let's say that they are. Let's assume they are. Let's assume that they are going to be receptive and they're like, Mitch, I'm going to do what I need to do here.
You would think that's what it's like, and especially when they pay to work with someone, but they may have a couple of things that they're willing to do based on what they think health is, and so we're going to focus there. I'm going to focus on giving them what they want in the beginning, always what they want. It's their program, it's not mine, but once they can get those little wins and see like, oh shit, if I do something different, I can have different choices, different outcomes, right? So if I can do something different and get this outcome, like what else can I do? Yeah. And so then maybe and the first couple of wins, they're expected. I want to lose 10 pounds in a month or whatever it may be. I want to perform better. I want to do this. But then when you start showing them that they have so much more potential than what they thought to be true, what they thought their boundaries were. When you push past that and see what's actually there, then they start to be, ask better questions, be more receptive to trying something a little bit more outside of their comfort zone. And eventually once these small decisions, they add up, right? So you don't do everything all at once. It's why I work with people for at least 6 months, and I'd rather work with them for a year, because that relationship the trust has to be built. I have to understand their life inside and out. I mean, we're communicating. You got 24/7 access to me, right? So the people that are really successful, I'm hearing from them, daily, and whatever is coming up, right? So I have to understand those stresses. We have to celebrate the wins. We have to try one thing at a time. And the more I do this, the more I'm blown away. Yeah, dude, I love the sexy stuff. I'd love to take them to the deep end of the pool and get results really fast, but that's not sustainable. It's not gonna. You're not going to keep those results, especially if they don't understand it, right? So it has to be a gradual process, and everything builds on itself, right? Like, I've been doing this for 16 years, and I feel like since the last time we've talked, which has been a month, I've changed so much that I don't even know what to tell you. Because that's what I do. I constantly improve and get better, and make mistakes, and take steps backwards. Progress is not always linear. I don't think it's linear at all. It's a process of observing and learning, and choosing to do something different, and getting your outcome, and then building on that.
So you would take a look at that person's whole life, their habits, their family, their work, their fitness, everything, and then work to build rapport with that individual first, but then work one by one to help them to remove and or add the things that can help to remove the stress from their life, or add in a new self-care routine that might help them to also remove that stress, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Is there one or two things that are just real quick? I'm just curious. Is there one or two things that are simple that we're doing? Like, I don't know, you mentioned coffee. So like, do you drink coffee? Would removing coffee help someone to lower those cortisol? Okay, so you're drinking it right now.
Well, okay, so let's talk about coffee. If we're going to talk, what's a healthy way to consume coffee? I'd wait an hour and a half until after I've woken up, so that my adenosine. So adenosine is what is what builds. You have the adenosine receptors in your body, and coffee is not giving you energy; it's blocking adenosine receptors. Okay, so in the morning, we want that adenosine to completely run out of the body. So that's like, it's your sleep wake cycle, your circadian rhythm. In the morning, you get sunlight in your eyes. You still got some melatonin around from sleep the night before. Cortisol is starting to come up. So we want to naturally let that come up. So give it at least an hour and a half so the adenosine clears. I would eat a breakfast within an hour of waking, and then have a coffee after that. So if we were to do like a cortisol awakening test, you're going to see, your cortisol gradually going up and your melatonin going down, and then it would switch at nighttime. You throw coffee in there, and it has this abnormal, extreme boost of cortisol, which is going to be taking energy from your adrenals. And then eventually later in the day, you're going to have some sort of energy crash more often than likely.
I drink coffee as soon as I wake up, man. As soon as I wake up, I brew my cup of black coffee.
Dude, try drinking some water first.
Okay.
So your body needs to hydrate. If you're not, are you drinking water when you wake up?
I do drink water, so I'll literally rotate between my water and my coffee simultaneously.
Yeah, try this. Like, try an hour. Like, give it an hour and a half. I have a big glass of water beside my bed. I usually squeeze like a lemon in it. The night before, I put an Elemental Labs electrolyte packet in there. We've went 8 hours without water, where our bodies are dehydrated. If your body's not hydrated, you're not going to get, energy's not going to work as good. I mean, a lot of times if you're not, headaches, you're not feeling good, it's dehydration. So hydrate first thing waking up, have a meal within an hour of waking up, and then, have coffee like hour and a half, 2 hours after waking.
Wow.
And just see what you notice. It's a little thing, but see what you notice. I notice more. I don't notice it as much. I don't notice a huge difference when I have like coffee after a meal, but if I was to fast and not eat until lunchtime and have a coffee, I'm really going to feel it. I'm going to feel kind of jittery. I'm going to feel a little bit anxious. I may not even feel like I can drink the whole coffee.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it. I'm going to let you know. I'm going to message you, and
give it a shot,
I'll
man.
do it for a week. I'll wait an hour and a half. I'll hydrate with water first, and then I'll go to the coffee and let you know.
I bet you'll notice it when you go back to like doing a little bit of intermittent fasting in the morning and then drink it more. So you'll be like, wow. I also notice that if I do that, I will crash later in the afternoon. I'll be tired more in the afternoon. These are very small, subtle changes. But I'll tell you this, we kind of talked about this last time, like intermittent fasting and that kind of thing. If I intermittent fast now, which I'll do it maybe once a week or something like that, even cutting the carbs down because I'm working out so much, I can just feel less energy in my body, less pop, less energy availability.
And you're still like, let's say you finish your last meal at 8 p.m. the night before, and then you go until 8 a.m. the next day. You're still fasting essentially for 12 hours, even if it's not a 16-hour fast. Like you're still, in essence, you're still taking advantage of a lot of the benefits of intermittent fasting, even if you're not waiting until noon to eat your first meal.
I typically get a 12 to 14-hour window every day.
Yeah.
Right. So like I try to stop eating as early as I can. I feel a lot better if I eat at like 6 o'clock, and then I won't eat until 8 the next day. So there's 14 hours right there.
Yeah, no, that's
so I
true.
wake up and I'm hungry, though, especially depending on the workout that I did the day before. And for years I did intermittent fasting and once a day eating and all that stuff. And I just feel so much better having something like just high protein. A little bit of fat, more protein and fat in the morning. If I'm not working out, I'll have like some berries or some nuts or something like that. I've been making a chia seed smoothie the night before, and or chia seed pudding is what it's called. But on workout days, I'll throw some overnight sprouted oats in there. I'll have a banana. That way I've got 50, 60 grams of carbs going into the workout. And I'll try to hit 200, 250 grams of carbs in a day on my workout days. And if it's a big day, if it's a day where I've got like squat and deadlifts and this big movement, big nervous system stressors, man, if I don't get 200 grams of carbs, I'm going to be super sore the next day.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Fascinating, dude. I love talking to you, man. I mean, you're a wealth of knowledge, not because you've read a lot of books, which you have, but because you've lived these things and have gone through them and are constantly seeking to continue growing. I mean, you work with like tons of different coaches at the same time to really optimize your life. And I think you're a picture perfect example of someone who is on the road to just living that optimized life. And a lot of other people want to do the same. And this is the second time possibly they've heard you. Maybe they just tuned in to this one. And for those who only have listened to this conversation with Mitch, go to the comments or the description, and there will be a link to the first episode because we talked about similar things, but also very different things. We dove more into intermittent fasting and supplements and all those different areas. So, Mitch, where can people contact you to schedule a conversation to see if working with you makes sense for them?
They can easily just visit my website, mitchwebb.com. I'm on Instagram, KMitchWebb, LinkedIn under Mitch Webb. And, they can shoot me an email at mitch@mitchwebb.com as well.
Awesome.
I don't know if I gave you a Calendly link last time. I feel like I did. So if you still have that, you can post that as well.
I think I do. I'll use that. And if not, we'll figure it out. It'll be in the description, guys. So go to the description. Definitely connect with Mitch because his content is fantastic. I mentioned that last time, but he's constantly sharing his journey. He's constantly sharing new tips. So be sure to go down there, connect with Mitch, and schedule a conversation to see what it would look like to take your lifestyle and your health and your well-being to the next level. Brother, it's great to have you on for round 2. Haven't had a lot of people back for round 2, but you're one of them. And I'm grateful for you, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you too, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always great to chat. Really enjoyed it. And looking forward to hear this one coming out, man.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks, Mitch. We covered a lot of different things in this conversation with Mitch than the first time. Be sure to go check out episode 1 in the description if you haven't watched it already, or maybe you want a refresher and you're going to go check it out again. I hope you took a lot away from this conversation where we talked a lot about emotions and the inner work and trauma and identifying that trauma. And we talked about the book, The Body Keeps the Score. I'll put a link to that in the description too for those interested in really learning more and diving more into that area of research. But we also talked about practical ways to reduce your stress and reduce the cortisol and the different metrics to look at when it comes to optimizing your life. Like, we covered a lot in 50 minutes, and that's Mitch's superpower. He's knowledgeable. He lives it. He's got the experience, and I'm super happy that we had him back on for round 2. If you took something away from this conversation, please share the show with just one other person who could use it as well. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in and watching and listening. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.